So I've mentioned in a pretty large portion of my trans-related content that I have mixed feelings on respectability politics in transmed spaces. I've had a few conversations about this recently, and while I'll admit my opinions still aren't exactly as straightforward as it's bad or it's good, I think I certainly have enough to say about it to warrant a video now. Also, if you like my videos and want to support me in continuing to create content, please check out my Amazon affiliate links in the description. Buying things from this shop allows me to make commissions on purchases you may have made anyway, and I have things on there ranging from pet care, art supplies, books I've both mentioned in past videos as well as just enjoy, as well as convention essentials ranging from sewing kits to Narcan and pepper spray. Thank you so much to anyone who helps me out there, and let's just get into the video. So before moving forward, I want to discuss what respectability politics actually is, and specifically what role it plays in transmedicalist communities and political strategy. I'd also like to note, my position in this video is not a representation of how all transmeds feel about this topic. It's a pretty heated issue with strong feelings on either side within our community. In a few words, respectability politics is the attempt of a minority or otherwise discriminated against group to appear quote-unquote normal or more socially acceptable in order to gain social acceptance, political or religious changes, or personal safety. This can look like quite a few things, ranging from pretty harmless to not so much. Most people belonging to minorities that are often considered pick-me's or who try and fit in with a quote-unquote model minority ideal are practicing respectability politics. People like Blair White going on conservative podcasts and talk shows and allowing herself to be misgendered in order to be seen as level-headed or not easily offended, Buck Angel calling himself a woman to align himself with TERFs, or just Pearly Things aligning herself with the manosphere and violently misogynistic ideas, the list goes on. These people place themselves in a position in which they politically align themselves with their oppressors, and allow themselves to be disrespected in order to seem like one of the good ones, and from their perspective at least, get in the good graces of said oppressors, even when the people they align themselves with often lack any respect for them. That being said, however, respectability politics does not always look like changing who you are or intentionally aligning yourself with your oppressor. On a smaller scale, it can be presenting yourself as conventionally normal to those in your life who may be ignorant or have misconceptions about the group you belong to. Where this plays a role in a lot of transmed spaces is that many of us who are just like this anyway, as opposed to actively changing our behavior or politics, such as with Buck Angel or Pearl, will intentionally talk to uneducated transphobic people to show them that not all trans people are a person going by cat self and banging our heads into concrete when someone doesn't understand us or asks questions. This is often done with the intent of personal safety around people such as teachers, coworkers, or otherwise people that you may kind of have to be around. That being said, it is done by a portion of the community with the belief that you as an individual just being like some guy, normal, will change the way that people vote or perceive trans people. I will admit that while I have respect for people who use respectability politics as a way to create more understanding people in their own social circle, this ultimately is simply a toned-down version of what the more extreme people are doing. While it often doesn't result in changing aspects of yourself or changing your political opinions, nor directly aligning yourself with your oppressor, it still requires that you exist in a certain way that's more appealing to the tastes of the oppressor in order to gain their favor. While as a transmedicalist, I don't support xenogenders and believe that people at least need a desire to pass and transition, my issue with 100% intentionally female-presenting quote-unquote FTM people and xenogenders and the like has never been the idea that they make us look bad or that they're unsavory to the tastes of those in power. It honestly irritates me just as much as many of the things inclusionists say whenever I hear other trans men use the idea that xenogenders are, entirely responsible for transphobia, or at least a major and fundamental part of it. Well, I will admit, I think that there is a small subset of people who are transphobic as a result of the nonsensical nature and often aggressive presentation in a lot of gender abolitionist and otherwise inclusionist spaces. These people are not ultimately the people making laws to ban HRT or LGBT literature or the like. You can't normal your way out of choices made by billionaires and corporate donations. I think there are arguments to be made for transmedicalist ideas that don't rely on respectability. Personally, I think if xenogenders actually were real, I wouldn't care how they look. My issue in regards to public perception and things like that is less so about the fact that they're embarrassing or that they're annoying, and more so the nature of how these things are often described, which creates implications on transness as a concept that are patently untrue and present ideas that transness is about personal aesthetic, is a choice, is a phase as most xenogenders are, that gender is not real, and that transition is cosmetic and not medically necessary. I've made a plethora of videos on xenogenders, so I'll leave it at that, but it's not about the fact that they make us look a certain way to me, it's about the fact that they are perpetuators of misinformation. When it comes to the position that respectability politics takes in transmed spaces as a whole, it often seems split down party lines. There are transmeds ranging from communists to centrists to ANCAPs, and I often find that centrists take the hardest stance on respectability politics. While I won't say this is the case for all centrists, nor all centrists in transmed spaces, many that I've personally encountered in trans spaces tend to lack any conviction in their beliefs, and often believe that activism or even just being socially abnormal in some way are actually counterintuitive to trans-related issues being solved, and that to exist in a state of essentially being a doormat is effective means of political action. Personally, I think social progress has a need for balance between the peaceful protester and the rioter. History evidently shows that we require some level of force to deal with oppressive structures, and that even those who are kind and peaceful are seen as threats in the same way as those of us who yell and kick and punch. We shouldn't forget MLK and the civil rights movement, that he was not treated as a peaceful reverend in his time, but as a governmental threat, nor undermine the role that the Black Panthers and Malcolm X played in that as well. Neither of those communities let themselves get stepped on in hopes that if they were quiet and meek enough, they would stop being seen as a threat. And yet, regardless of which approach is taken, your oppressors will not see your attempts for peace and simply wanting to live your life as anything but a threat until you're dead and they can prop you up on a whitewashed stick and go, no, see, we didn't hate him, he was nice, so this one's good, don't be like the other guy. Working within a broken system does not and has never worked. You'll never meet enough people in your lifetime to have a significant impact on votes, nor will those votes ultimately create any impact on greater systems that frankly don't care about your vote, nor that of the conservative who kind of hated trans people before you talk to them. Respectability politics has its place in personal relationships if that's what you feel most comfortable presenting yourself as, and no one is ever required to participate in activism simply as a result of being a part of something that they didn't choose to be. But acting as though respectability is activism only serves to undermine and discourage actions that have been required in the past to gain some level of social progress. Acting as though the reason that things like xenogenders are bad is because they make us look bad, as opposed to the fact that they spread misinformation, invade trans spaces where they don't belong, often result in harmful advice such as saying that passing doesn't matter whenever people need support passing, or create aggressive and hostile environments as a result of their lack of evidence and insecurity in their beliefs, among other things, only serves to basically disparage our own arguments and make them present less strong than they actually are as a result of, well, using bad arguments. Attempting to be a model minority has never helped anyone and doesn't progress social progress in the way that you think it does. Again, if you practice respectability politics because it makes you feel more comfortable in the environments you exist in, I think that that's perfectly fine. But treating it as though it's an effective means of political action is nonsense, and we should stop doing that. There's better arguments for transmedicalism than saying XYZ makes us look bad. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Hade.
I stare at the populace in prayer. I look at them talking to the air. I sing for them, they don't seem to hear.